Hey guys, so continuing our series on the best water cooling cases, we're going to talk about the Inwin 909. It's a legendary case, very rare, very special, and we're going to talk about why I like it so much. Let's get started. Alright guys, so Inwin makes some great quality cases and the 909 is no exception. Now this is a very unique case that's built unlike any other case that I've built in. This came out several years ago and at first it was really expensive, I think over $400 or something like that, and even a lot of boutique PC builders such as Main Gear use this for their showcase system like the Main Gear Rush. Now this case has been around for a few years and I think it was sometime last year as this case was getting a little bit older, Micro Center used to sell them, and I saw them gradually drop the price as they were trying to get rid of their stock. It was a little bit of an older case, a lot smaller cases came out since then, and I was able to pick it up for around $200. I mean, that's a huge price savings over what it originally was, I think over $400. This is such a special and high quality case, not to mention extremely heavy. I'm going to talk about first the aesthetics, second performance, and then third other very interesting build notes on this case. So let's start first talking about the aesthetics. Now this case has a lot of possibilities of how you can build it. The more creative that you can be, the better. The way that Main Gear does it, they're usually going to have like a 360mm radiator facing the user or the PC gamer, whatever you want to call yourself, giving you a spectacular RGB fan light show. And then of course you have your panel. If you see, this case is actually constructed very uniquely. Some people may have a little bit of trouble building in this case. It's definitely not for the new builder. There's going to be one section to the left where you can put your radiator, and then it's going to be sort of divided another section of the case where you can have your motherboard. You have these really cool things that pull out of the fan brackets so that way you can mount your radiators. Very easy to use. Aesthetically, it looks really cool. Not only that, you have these hard drive bays that are on the top of the case. Now, a lot of builders and even the boutique builders that we mentioned, they remove these hard drive bays and they install some type of reservoir up here. Of course, you can do a cylindrical reservoir or even some type of like a custom distribution plate. So that way you have your liquid flowing up there and then coming out back into the different compartments. So it's definitely really interestingly designed. In terms of the aesthetics, you have to be very careful when you're designing a build around this case. For example, the motherboard is a little bit hard to access. Like if you have water cooling gear on that left panel, you just have a little slot where you can sort of go in. It is kind of difficult to get to your motherboard USB ports, so just make sure you don't put a pump back there or something like that where you can't reach it, or if you do, just make sure to really finagle it so it fits really well. But aesthetically, this case has so many possibilities. You could really put a thick radiator right on that back panel with 360mm radiator with some RGB fans. And then you could have your inner compartment with your radiators. I was actually able to fit a lot of water cooling gear in here. 240 on the bottom, 240 on the front, 360 on the back if you do it like that. And that way you do get a lot of great performance that we're going to talk about next. Keep in mind that airflow in this case is a little bit funny. Now in the back, I think you'll have decent airflow, especially if you have some fans there because it is open in the back. The front of the case is a different story. It's kind of sealed. It does have these little holes that air is supposed to go through, but you're definitely not going to get the best cooling performance from the front of the case. On the bottom of the case, it is a little more open, so you do have that air flowing through there. I didn't really find that the performance was jeopardized in any major way, especially considering so much radiator space that you're able to fit, considering this case's unique design. I thought cooling performance was really good. I was able to get down to like 42C on a 2080 Ti, water cooled with everything in the case, which I think is pretty fantastic performance. So definitely performance wise, it's really good. Now keep in mind, if you do mount the radiator sort of facing the gamer, the PC gamer, such as yourself, you are going to sort of come up against that glass and airflow is not going to be too good. You can leave yourself a little bit of space between the glass and the fans, as much space as possible as you can leave. If you do decide to do sort of like a vertical radiator mount like Main Gear does in their Rush system, just keep in mind you're going to be coming up against that back area where the motherboard in and out ports go. So you may have a little bit of trouble accessing that, and you are going to have to do a fairly thin radiator as well, just to give you enough room. And of course, your airflow may be a little bit compromised just because you have that glass there and not too much air going in that direction. Now, if you put the radiator sort of flush with the back of the case, you're going to get a lot better airflow. But of course, aesthetically, it's not going to look as nice. That's just going to be a compromise if you want a little bit more aesthetic or a little bit more performance. Now, a few other really interesting quirks and build notes of this case. It is really, really heavy, especially when you have water cooling gear in it, but everything is such high quality. The tempered glass panels, everything really feels next level. I mean, this is obviously a $400 or $500 case. Just lucky that I was able to get it for like $200. I mean, so everything is built exquisitely well. Everything's heavy. Everything is just really, really nice. Not to mention the awesome aesthetic that we talked about. Like I briefly mentioned before, the radiators on the front and on the bottom do have these little brackets that come out. So it is a lot easier to mount radiators to this case, as well as you have a lot of options sort of in that center panel. You can mount a fan on there. You can even mount a pump or something like that. I've done it in many different ways. And overall, after the system is put together, you have so many options for creativity here that it can really make your creative juices flow. Of course, you could also do a really cool air-cooled type of build in here. You don't necessarily have to do water cooling. It's just really meant for water cooling because you have these different design elements like we mentioned. And just remember, this case is probably not for the novice user. I mean, the first time I built in it, everything is easy to do. Like, for example, these fan brackets that I mentioned, it's a big case, so you do have a nice layout. So in that sense, it's pretty easy. But in terms of getting a really nice design, especially between the different compartments in the case, it is a little bit more difficult. And I would consider this sort of an advanced user type of case in order to get a really nice build out of it. But if you can still pick one up on the used market, or if you find some open box that hasn't been sold from years ago, it's definitely a case that's super unique and merits your consideration. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoy the video. Remember to smash that like button, subscribe if you like my content, and I'll see you guys on the next video.